President Akufo-Addo is addressing the nation on May Day celebration. Let's take you live to his Facebook page for that address.
And Kaswa. 2 weeks ago, when I invited the leadership of the Trades Union Congress to Jubilee House, we discussed at length what impact the virus and the measures to contain it have had on businesses and the welfare of workers. In the words of the Honorable TUC Secretary General Dr. Yalba, and I quote, "What we are seeing is mind-boggling. Businesses are collapsing in almost all sectors of the economy. Many people have already lost their jobs, and many more would have lost their jobs without the easing of these restrictions," unquote. In spite of this stark assessment, I was encouraged by his statement that the fight against COVID-19 is a shared responsibility. And I want to stress once again that together we will defeat this virus. Like virtually all other countries, Ghana has not been spared the adverse effects of the pandemic. With the International Labour Organization, ILO, estimating that 2.7 billion workers in the world have been affected by the imposition of partial and full lockdowns. Preliminary data available to us in Ghana indicates that the impact of the virus on our economy has been dire. Indeed, no sector of our economy has been spared by the pandemic. The Bank of Ghana tells us that the virus will have a negative impact on exports, imports, taxes, foreign investments, and foreign exchange receipts, with GDP growth rate estimated at 2.5% in a worst-case scenario. The virus has also resulted in reduced productivity, job losses, and steep declines in revenue for government, businesses, households, and individuals. Should the pandemic persist for much longer, we could face an uphill battle in trying to minimize its effects on the growth and development of our economy and in ameliorating the suffering of our workers, the poor, and the vulnerable. As government and as social partners, it is our collective responsibility to chart our own course out of this pandemic onto a path of sustained growth, progress, and prosperity, which will safeguard jobs and ensure the safety of the population. It is obvious that a weak response to the threat of COVID-19 would jeopardize the gains made to create a buoyant economy and will worsen the lives and livelihoods of all Ghanaians. So we have put in place a resilience and recovery plan hinged on the coronavirus alleviation program to support businesses and households with the overarching aim to ensure economic activity and sustain livelihoods, and on the $1 billion IMF Rapid Credit Facility to help close the financing gap that has been created as a result of shortfalls in revenues, together with unbudgeted additional expenditures. Equivalent discussions are ongoing with the World Bank to raise more funds, which should be completed soon. I've charged the Ministry of Finance to work with the Bank of Ghana to design innovative policies and find more resources to strengthen the productive sectors of the economy, particularly industry and agriculture. And I understand that the process will shortly yield positive results. The Minister for Finance and his South African counterpart are leading the efforts of African ministers of finance to obtain debt relief for our economies. The World Bank, through the IDA, has granted a debt repayment standstill for the next 9 months, which will result in our delaying principal and interest payments totaling $500 million to create greater fiscal space to promote our economy. I've also asked the Ministers for Finance, Trade and Industry, Food and Agriculture, and the Chief Executive of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center to create a future-proof, resilient plan consistent with the principles of Ghana Beyond Aid. Through the 1.2 billion cedi coronavirus alleviation program, government ensured the provision of hot meals and dry food packages to over 400,000 vulnerable families, and has absorbed for 3 months the water bills of all Ghanaians and the electricity bills of all Lifeline customers, and provided a 50% subsidy for all other customers. We've also instituted a comprehensive incentive package to help motivate our health workers, who are the heroes and heroines of our struggle. Government has taken other measures. It has extended the tax filing date from April to June. Through negotiations with the banks, we have ensured a 2% reduction of interest rates by banks, effective last month. And additionally, the banks have granted a 6-month moratorium of principal repayments to entities in the airline and hospitality industries, i.e. hotels, restaurants, car rentals, food vendors, taxis, and Uber operators. Further, in collaboration with the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, business and trade associations, and selected commercial and rural banks, government will, from this month of May, roll out a soft lane scheme up to a total of 600 million cedis to support micro, small, and medium-scale businesses. Loans disbursed will have a 1-year moratorium and 2-year repayment period. The decision by the commercial banks, with the support of the Bank of Ghana, to institute a 3 billion cedi credit and stimulus package to help revitalize industries, especially in the pharmaceutical, hospitality, service, and manufacturing sectors, is one I very much welcome. Workers of Ghana, the onset of this virus has not only led to job losses, but has also revealed the ingenuity and can-do spirit of the Ghanaian, thereby creating jobs. It has stimulated our capacity to produce for ourselves and is making us depend on the things we make and grow for our own survival. This is a clear manifestation of our potential to be able to move this country to a situation of self-sufficiency. Out of adversity, Ghanaian scientists, today, we're able to produce in increasingly large quantities sanitizers and essential personal protective equipment required by our health workers to fight the virus. We have to do even more. It has also led to a paradigm shift in work management protocols and the mainstreaming of digital technology in all aspects of our working lives. To this end, I've directed the Minister for Employment and Labor Relations to lead a national dialogue on the future of work, to fashion out a national strategy so that we're not taken by events as such as this pandemic in the future. Let me state, the government will intensify the implementation of the 4-point national strategy on formalization to facilitate the identification and provision of support, relief, and stimulus packages to businesses and workers in these difficult times. I also assure organized labor the government will continue to deepen its engagement with them as we try to mitigate the adverse impact of COVID-19 on the economy, businesses, and jobs. At this stage, I implore each and every one of you, just as we have done over the last couple of months, to continue to sacrifice so that we do not have to bear a greater cost in the future. All sections of society must see this sacrifice as a common effort to defeat this common enemy. Before I have to conclude, I have to provide you with a current update on our fight against the pandemic. As of yesterday, We have conducted a total of 113,497 tests, the most per million people of any country in Africa, with 2,074 testing positive. Our recoveries have increased from 188 to 212, and the number of deaths stands sadly at 17. Our positivity rate has gone up marginally from 1.5% to 1.8%. 6 persons are critically ill, and 1,839 persons are well and responding to treatment in health facilities or are being managed from home. This, in effect, means that there's presently no big pressure on our healthcare facilities to manage these cases. We pray to God it stays that way. Steps at increasing further our testing capacity have been taken, with the coming on stream of the veterinary laboratory in Accra, the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research Laboratory also in Accra, the University of Health and Allied Sciences in Ho, and the veterinary laboratory in Kpong Tamale, to aid the labors of the Noguchi Research Institute, the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research, and the National Public Health Reference Laboratory at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. A number of isolation, quarantine, and test treatment facilities have also been identified across the country for use. The nation is profoundly grateful to the Church of Pentecost for the generous Christian gesture of making available its multi-purpose convention center at Gomuafete as an isolation center which can house over 1,000 persons and 300 medical staff. It is important for every Ghanaian to note that the more people we test for the virus, the more persons we'll discover as positive, and thus have the opportunity to isolate and treat them. The implementation of this strategy of tracing, testing, and treating is our surest way of rooting out the virus. I've stated time and time again, all the measures put in place to combat the spread of the disease are under constant review, and government will not hesitate to cordon, impose a curfew, trace, test, and treat persons in communities where we're witnessing significant spread of the infections. I will continue to urge all of us to continue to practice social distancing, wash our hands with soap under running water, refrain from shaking hands. Where's my mask? Where's my mask? And wear our masks whenever we leave our homes. Businesses and other workplaces should operate and observe staff management and workplace protocols of social distancing. This applies equally forcefully to public transport operators and users of our marketplaces. We must observe these measures religiously, as they are the weapons of our battle against the virus. With the suspension of all public gatherings still in force and our schools closed, government has taken the decision to extend further the closure of our borders for a month, effective 1 a.m. on Monday, 4th May, until Sunday, 31st of May. We know that the overwhelming majority of positive cases came from travelers or contacts of travelers. So we have no option but to keep our borders closed until we are confident that we have put in place measures to prevent travelers from importing the virus. These restrictions cannot and will not be a permanent feature of our lives, but they are for now essential to our survival. As I said last Sunday, I shall be outlining shortly the steps for systematically easing the restrictive measures to bring us back to normality. But I would plead with you, stop the stigmatization of recovered persons, as it will rather drive people away from getting screened, tested, and treated. The stigmatization of recovered persons must not go on, because if the virus did not end their lives and livelihoods, the stigma from members of their communities should not. The overwhelming majority of them will continue to live perfectly normal lives and cease to be sources of infections. Workers of Ghana, the role of organized labor during our national struggle for freedom and independence from the British colonial power is written in letters of gold. The historic call for positive action in 1950, made by our first president, Kwame Nkrumah, would not have succeeded without the active support of the trades union movement, then led by the legendary trades unionists, Pobi Bini and Vidal Quest. In the post-independent era, organized labor has continued to play a very constructive part in the development of our country. Today, our nation requires its active involvement in this fight against the pandemic, and I call upon all working people to step forward again. I'm confident that together, if we remain united and resolute and maintain discipline and self-discipline, we shall defeat this virus. This too shall pass, for the battle is the Lord's. Once again, I wish you a happy May Day celebration, even if a restrained one. May God bless all Ghanaian workers and us all, and may God bless our homeland Ghana and make her great and strong. I thank you for your attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem.